good afternoon to everyone. My name is Mon Dule, and I'm going to be joined by Mark Roberts, our technical director for today. But firstly, thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar. I know it's going to be a busy week for us going to the Christmas, but we really appreciate that you spending time with us today to share with you some technical updates and new features with regard to SolarWinds. But a couple of housekeeping items before I start. Next slide, Mark. First is on the poll questions. So there will be some poll questions along the way. And I encourage you to actually answer the questions so that we can have some baseline. We also encourage you to submit. You have the ability to submit your questions to the right panel of your screen, ask them in real time, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. And lastly, would be the recording of this webinar would be posted to our social media channels and also to our website. But just to run through the agenda with you, first we're going to be doing a quick introduction of who Prosperon is. And then the meat of the presentation for this afternoon would be talking about the new features at SolarWinds, which Mark would gladly help us during the presentation. And of course, a live demo and then a Q&A session. Sorry, Mark, I forgot to ask you, how are you today?
Mon, that's okay. I didn't mind. I'm very good, thank you. Excited to have another session for everybody today.
Right. So I think on to the next slide, Mark. So just a little bit of introduction from us. So we are Prosperon Network. So some of you may already know us. We've been dealing with you. Some of our customers have been with us for an average of 10 to 10 years. So pretty much you know us. But for those of you who don't, we are the leading UK authority in deploying, tuning, and training users of SolarWinds products. We are also extremely proud of the fact that we have been a SolarWinds partner for over 14 years. We are also a founding partner of NetBrain, a network automation platform solution that is designed for network documentation, troubleshooting, change, and cyber defense. Our team is composed of experienced security and security cleared consultants and engineers who are responsible for many successful SolarWinds projects and implementations, not just here in the UK, but also globally. A little bit of trivia and statistics. We have delivered over 800 days of professional services into our customers and also 800 support cases. Our ideas can actually be heard using our status as the only UK partner who is a THWAC MVP. And we are very happy to share that our professional services team have also won the Technical Excellence Award from SolarWinds this year, a testament of the level of professionalism, commitment, and dedication that we provide to customers like you. The next slide, Mark. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are a leading authority in deploying, tuning, and training users of SolarWinds products. So, customers like you engage with us through our consultancy and implementation services on the following scenarios. So, firstly, perhaps you've been using SolarWinds solutions for quite a while and really wanted to optimize the platform either from a performance or a usability perspective. Customers also engage with us during pre-implementation. Say, for example, when just really planning to consider a network management platform or perhaps SolarWinds in that case. You could also possibly be in a situation where you're not really happy or satisfied with the way the solution has been designed and implemented and is looking for an expert partner like Prosperon to help you with your project. You may also due for an upgrade to implement some best practice and do more of the automation and do not really have the resources to do it. A lot of our customers also make requests for SolarWinds to be integrated into some other third-party systems that they have. So we work very closely with them to deliver this integration that is required through Orion's open API capability. We are also an official UK SolarWinds partner, and our training courses have been designed and will assist you to become SolarWinds certified professionals should you wish to go to that certification program. And finally, our customers also reach out to us for assistance once the tool is in place. This includes both technical support as well as general advice on how to achieve certain things or get a second opinion or a strategy. So today's webinar will focus on sharing and demonstrating to you some SolarWinds feature releases to enhance the performance of your SolarWinds platform and increase your monitoring capabilities to help you align with your current plans and objectives for your team. On to the next slide, Mark. So we'll start the presentation by having a poll question. So how often do you upgrade your SolarWinds applications? So the options are actually in there.
Yeah, so this is always an interesting one for us because we do see from time to time customers that are running platforms that are kind of 4 or 5 years old, running version 10 and such like. So it's always good to get an understanding of how customers are keeping these up to date.
Exactly, Mark. So especially this year, I think even late last year, we've been seeing a lot of our customers, upgrading their SolarWinds platform. So this is really an interesting poll question to start our webinar for today.
Yeah, and hopefully what we're going to show today is going to encourage people to kind of upgrade. It's a big thing, keeping on top of upgrades while the poll's going. Certainly that ability to take advantage of new features, but also it's important from a support standpoint and security. SolarWinds are always improving, hence today's session, and also adding security functionality to this. So that is all very strong reasons to make sure you keep up to date. So how are we doing on the poll? Are we able to?
Definitely, yes. We are still collecting the responses, but over 43% are actually seeing upgrading their platform, Mark, when they see a feature that they like to benefit. But very close really is these pain points when it comes to upgrading. So at 36%. So any thoughts on that one?
Well, this is it. It's, as I say, we are seeing still a lot of customers that are running version 11 X.dot releases, and from that point of view, the process was a lot more involved. It was probably a multi-step upgrade path to certainly the latest releases it will be, and Great. You need to run installation routines on each application server and do things in the right way. Well, that's still the case. You still need to do things in the right way, but the new versions, everything from 2019.2 and beyond, we have a centralized platform upgrade process. So doing things in the web GUI, pressing a button and it simultaneously upgrading all your additional polling engines, web servers, etc. It's made a massive difference in terms of that process.
And I think what's also interesting from my side, I'm actually happy, is that no one actually said literally as they soon that their upgrades or the versions or releases they upgrade. So I think everyone is actually doing the best practice for that one anyway in terms of upgrades. Agree, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. And that 36%, they are, dare I say it, the sensible ones. There are customers that have to upgrade because obviously bug fixes or they absolutely need the new features for their infrastructure or whatever. But yeah, the release came out only a few weeks ago, and it is something that we do advise customers just to kind of wait 5-6 weeks, let the release get out in the wild, get them feedback, wait for the first hotfix to come along, which it did last week, and then look at upgrading. That's a much better timing scenario for us.
Right. So,
okay.
Yep. So I think we can proceed. I think the floor is yours, Mark, for the next part of the presentation. So
thank you, Mon. Thank you. So what we're going to just kind of start off is a little bit of slide deck just to kind of set the framework for discussions on these new features. Now, for those of you that are maybe newer to the Orion platform, this is the kind of SolarWinds mainstay solution, the on-premise solution for monitoring and management, network, servers, infrastructures, applications, everything basically that's plugged in to the network and beyond can be monitored with it. So we have this kind of core functionality, and for us things like mapping displays, visual presentations, alerting engine, the reporting engine, these are all that kind of core framework. And from that point of view, the first thing to highlight here is that we have a new version naming structure. Traditionally, each individual Orion module, SAM, NPM, NCM, etc., all had individual version numbers. So the previous release, Orion NPM, was 12.5. That added a layer of complexity. Because this Orion suite is that it is a modular platform, we always had this kind of fun and games of working through upgrade paths. If you had this version of SAM and this version of NTA and this version of NTM, what was the workflow process to do the upgrade path? Well, now SolarWinds have simplified that whole process because it's all centralized and you're literally going to just press buttons in the web GUI to upgrade things. They don't need that unnecessary complexity. So everything has been moved to a year and quarter format. So the previous release was called 2019.2. Also had the application versions alongside it, and now we're talking purely about that nomenclature with regards to 2019.4. So all Orion modules, indeed, the SEM solution, the Security Event Manager solution, has also been aligned to this versioning structure as well. So much simpler, and also you know what year and quarter you last did an upgrade. And on that, SolarWinds are very frequent in their updates. They do for each of the Orion applications release 2 major releases per year, and so that kind of cadence, keeping on top of that, is a critical factor to include within your life cycle. What we also have, and this is a really big one, it's been really good. We've been discussing with SolarWinds for some time the need to kind of concentrate on some of the existing features, and so the web performance has had a particular focus. We have, in our upgrades we've done for customers and our labs, we've seen significant improvements into page load time performance. This is a big bugbear for some customers. Some of the widgets take longer to load than others. Those kind of things are being improved in parallel because we are working through database schema changes. We're moving to column architecture data storage, for example. That is helping underlying performance, and also there is significant improvements into the way the web page works as well. So, go on.
Sorry, Mark. I'm really getting excited in this one because, as you're aware, from someone who's actually been, always talking to customers, and knowing for a fact that, SolarWinds has, historically been very focused on releasing some new features, and I think improving this user interface performance is something that customers will be happy and glad that we've suddenly changed this shift and looking into the performance side of the platform.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that as the capabilities, as the feature set of Orion grows, so does the database. And so what was an average database size a few years ago is now significantly more than that, 30–40% bigger. And so from that point of view, there's a whole range of things that need to be improved to allow that performance improvements to come along. But SolarWinds absolutely are listening. They're listening to customers and saying, okay, these are our pain points. Web performance has been a significant one. So we have our first taste of that in here.
Great.
So that alone for me is a reason to upgrade. Absolutely. Orion Maps. So this has been a kind of iterative process whereby what they're referring to as Orion Mapping version 2 has been slowly introduced in 2019.2, enhanced in this version. So that kind of, I'm not going to say legacy because it's absolutely still there, it's absolutely still usable, but the network atlas method of creating maps is getting to the point now where you can really look at replacing the way that you do your map presentations. So we will have a look at that. And for any SolarWinds people on the session or see this in the future, we're all excited to see the start of dark theme appearing, which I'll show you in a moment. At the bottom there, SolarWinds this year acquired an ITSM platform called Manage, and as part of that, this is the first kind of piece of work to allow automatic integration. So an alert from Orion, for example, if you are a managed user, you can create an action that would automatically create a ticket in Manage or in Service Desk, shall I say, and it will then send the ticket reference back to Orion for display and linkage in there. So nice clean integration for that too. So the first one, and I always would start on this because Network Performance Monitor is the heart and soul of the monitoring platform. It's a couple of key features here. We have what SolarWinds are referring to as a technical preview. Essentially, this means that they're kind of touching on this. They're releasing what they have done so far. And the reason it's technical preview is it's limited to certain device types. And the obvious reason for that is that they are literally visually mapping the front panels of the switches. So what you see here with regards to this Juniper switch, that is actually the front panel, the ports, the locations of them that's appropriate. So clearly they've got a lot of work to do to map those into the platform. And we'll see in the demo how nice this is, how nice it is to kind of visually represent the display. I've worked with many customers over the years, for example, that would create kind of rack diagrams in the Network Atlas solution to fully represent the switch to stack functionality as it is racked up physically. This now allows you to kind of remove away from that, and this will get even more exciting when we get things like switch stacks coming into play and enhancing those areas. We've also got a really nice feature. So for those of you that have been taking advantage of Performance Monitor, a feature that came along a good couple of years ago now, if you haven't, you should be. It's a very useful feature of Orion. We have this ability and have had the ability to do kind of real-time polling within that section of the web interface. Well, no, SolarWinds have brought that into the detail pages. So on the node detail pages and interface detail pages, we can now have real-time pollers for CPU and memory and interface percentage utilization. Expect more to come on that. So from when you're analyzing the performance and health and statistics, having these kind of charts on there is hugely valuable. Being able to see that in granular terms is even more powerful. There is a setting that you can see there. You have the ability to change the polling frequency. Okay, a couple of reasonably minor things, but very useful things for the NetFlow Traffic Analyzer module. The first one of those users that are utilizing the Meraki hardware, there is improved support for flow analysis from Meraki. This has been challenging, and actually the whole of the Meraki monitoring is a challenge for all monitoring providers, because the API.
I was about to say, Mark, because I'm also seeing quite a lot of customers having need to support for Meraki, and they need some reports or dashboards in terms of being able, aside from Cisco, they also wanted to see what's happening actually with the Meraki systems that they have. So
yeah, it's a technology which is growing. As a kind of Meraki being that central controller cloud-based solution, it's getting a lot more interest and traction, as I say. But the pretty interface that it provides and everything, there is still quite a lot of work for Cisco and Meraki to put in place to allow that data to be available for traditional monitoring solutions such as Orion. So SolarWinds are working very closely with them. If you do have Meraki, please let us know if you're having any issues.
I was about to say, yeah.
I have a direct line to the product manager. They are very keen to improve the way that they deal with Meraki. So please reach out to us separately if you are experiencing any things with your Meraki infrastructure.
Yeah, or just pop into the chat section, and then we'll be able to pick it up, and then we'll have a separate discussions going forward. So
yeah,
thanks.
Yeah. Fantastic. Just on that, Monu, I know you mentioned at the beginning, but I see no one has asked any questions. But in the GoToMeeting panel, there is a chat area. There is a question posting section.
Yes.
Please put things in there. Certainly when I go through the demo, if I can show you things in terms of these new features, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Yep.
The last thing here on the regards NetFlow is the interface management, and so we can see that we've got a much cleaner way of defining which sources, and certainly the CBQoS data that is also collected. For the Network Configuration Manager, again, with kind of standing on the shoulders of the work that was done in 2019.2, the last release for Palo Alto, where we have this network insight function. So if you have Palo Alto's major improvements, you've got custom views, you've got insight into policies. This version brings the ability to not just collect that from the local device, but if those devices are being managed via Panorama, it will collect it via that management platform. For those users that have Lenovo Campus NOS and EtherWAN devices, then we have extended support for providing firmware upgrades and some out-of-the-box config change templates for those platforms. No,
Mark,
we got.
sorry,
Yeah,
Mark,
please.
before you proceed, I was just wondering because Network Configuration Manager is one of the SolarWinds modules, which I feel really is a very powerful tool. So, but you often also find customers wherein they're not really, utilizing the NCM capabilities to its fullest. So perhaps that is something that you can quickly share with us, and anything that that could help
Yeah,
customers. Yeah.
yeah, certainly with regards to things like the health checks, we see a lot of
Mm,
customers using basic functionality in NCM, which is a shame because it has and can offer so much more than just doing backup
yep.
functionality. Um, the new features that are in here, probably not big drivers to kind of suddenly adopt more
Hmm.
capabilities, but absolutely that is one of the modules which we see people not take full advantage of.
Yes.
There is an awful lot more capabilities in there, not just in terms of central configuration control, but just the analysis of backups, the policy reporting, and vulnerability. So lots of really useful function.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, man. A few of the other modules. So Voice and Network Quality Manager, literally just supports for Cisco Unified Call Manager, supporting 12.5. For IPAM and User Device Tracker, the big one with IPAM and Bugbear, something that we have a number of scripts that we developed internally to kind of replace what was available in the application. We've now got the benefit of having that in the GUI, and so exporting and importing structure content in and out of an Orion IPAM instance, whether this is to kind of move it to another one or just to allow us to quickly populate, has been a big benefit.
And 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 also, I think, Mark, so like for example, we do have a lot of customers we're in, especially specifically for this year. So I personally, for me, I have some customers we're in. They only have IPAM or they only have UDT, and we always make it a point to try to position these like twin
Yeah,
products wherein they actually complement each other, and we have to
yeah,
make sure that these two solutions are being looked at from a
yeah,
management and monitoring perspective. So do you
exactly.
feel the same way as well? Yeah.
Yeah, from the way I refer to them with customers I speak to is symbiotic. They are the
These
track and
twins.
trace. Yeah, exactly. They are that. They work so closely together,
Hmm.
sharing information across them, being able to identify where users are, what hardware they're using, the
Hmm.
machines they're logged onto. Yeah,
Hmm.
they work so closely together.
Yep.
Okay, so onto the kind of sys management side of things, SAM being the biggest application in that realm. We've got, again, as part of continued improvements to support Nutanix or Nutanix, or however you would like to pronounce it. We all like to have our different pronunciations for things in IT. Don't mention Linux or Linux. Yeah, if you have Nutanix, certainly the virtualization manager, SAM, storage, all of these modules have had significant improvements to bring a much powerful insight into the health and status and usage of the Nutanix platform. This is that hyper-converged virtualized infrastructure.
So as we've said earlier, if any of you are actually using Nutanix and then you wanted to look into how you can monitor them via the SolarWinds SAM application module, please feel free to chat us or let us know if you need any
Yeah,
help on that one. Yep.
the Nutanix kind of management interface is
Mm.
very good, it's very powerful. You're going to get a
Mhm.
lot of insight and understanding about how it's doing. The benefit of having this as a common theme in a monitoring platform is when you've got all of your infrastructure in there, whether it's your network, your storage, your
Mhm.
virtualization, your servers, the
Mhm.
applications that are running on those servers, having all of that in a central platform means that when
Yep.
you have issues across that stack, you know where you need to start looking. So,
Mhm.
okay. And this is one of the nice ones here. So we've got this API poller. It's a part of SAM. It's not actually gone in as a kind of SAM component monitor, as would be possibly expected. But this opens up a whole realm of collecting customized data from a web service API. I'll certainly be showing you how beneficial that is in this demonstration. And then the last thing, just an improvement to collecting domain trust data for the existing App Insight for Active Directory template that is provided out of the box. So if you have the Active Directory App Insight, it's automatically going to extend it. If you haven't deployed App Insight for Active Directory, then you are absolutely recommended to do so if you have SAM to get this information.
Mark, before you proceed, you did mention about support for SaaS solutions. So because we're seeing quite a lot of our customers and even prospects discussing about how can the server and application modules support their cloud infrastructure. So why do you think
I mean
monitoring ports and something like that?
Yeah, the importance of this one can't be understated. We typically take a scripted approach to collecting data from APIs, certainly RESTful JSON APIs. And so this opens up or starts to open up a big realm of simplification. We don't need to go a scripted route to interface. More technology is utilizing web service APIs just to share data. So even Meraki, we're not collecting data from SNMP necessarily. Some of the Meraki infrastructure we do, but SNMP is a kind of traditional protocol for monitoring. Well, a web service API is replacing that. It's a lot more powerful, it's a lot more flexible, and so as more and more new technology comes on board, certainly the SaaS environments and the PaaS and IaaS environments, they are presenting their health and utilization data via RESTful API, and so this is going to give us much straightforward ease into that information.
Definitely.
So again, I've already kind of touched on this, the extension for Nutanix, collecting information from there. So you can see if we were to add the Nutanix platform, automatically it will collapse a whole load of information, say through that Prism environment. And the last ones with regards some of the system modules in Orion, we've got the Web Performance Monitor. So this is where they have rewritten the entire recorder process and the player process within that function. And so that meant that they released a version in 2019.2 that didn't have every feature that was available in the previous version. They've now caught up with that. So as you can see on the screen, there's a whole bunch of things which are now bringing all of those new additional features back into that module. And so if you are doing kind of web page journey monitoring, then you've got the extended capabilities with this. And some of these are very, very important, particularly things like XY coordinate. If you are working with a website which is kind of using imagery as layers and those kind of things. SRM, always more and more devices being added, and so we have visibility of the EMC data domain, which is obviously a very strong and popular solution for backup solutions. So we have support for that. We also have a first technical preview where SRM is being used to go into controller performance. And so the first one we have is the VNX Clarion hardware. Clearly, more will be coming along down the line. And one of my favorite things out of this feature set is with the Server Configuration Manager module, we now have support for Linux. Linux for me is there's a huge, obviously, appetite for this. The way that Linux works, you have files, the configuration files. These are very straightforward to identify changes. If somebody goes into a conf file, makes a textual change, saves it, this solution will be able to identify that.
You did mention, Mark, that's actually one of your favorite modules, and I do agree with you. The feeling is the same, mutual, because I feel that the Server Configuration Manager module is one of the the more newer products, but there's been a lot of focus, as you could see, in terms of the development, and has really matured very quickly in terms of really pushing this product into the market. So I'm glad that you mentioned about the Server Configuration Manager being your favorite module.
I'm going to show this one in the demo because this is such a nice, easy thing to benefit from.
That's right.
And the last thing, database performance monitor. So this solution obviously is a dedicated solution for monitoring databases. So there's a whole bunch of things in terms of new technology. So you're utilizing the Azure managed SQL service. This is now supported again with new SQL versions. You can see here, but the big one here for me is the tuning. We've got this continuation of the AI analysis where the application is providing you information and saying, look, I'm monitoring this database. I'm seeing issues with it. I'm seeing not just his performance metrics, interpret it and assess what you think you should do, but actually saying and telling you, look, when I see this, and I have seen this, this is the kind of thing you're likely to need to do. That has been, again, enhanced. So we have the kind of index analysis with regards to table tuning best practices. And a couple of other things in terms of API to automate and integrate with other solutions and enhance visibility of the virtualization. So we are seeing more and more SQL servers running on virtual, has done over the last few years, and the impact that virtualization layer can have on SQL Server can be significant. So this ties those two layers together to bring it into a consolidated view to say, well, is it the database, is it the application server, or actually is it the underlying VM performance?
And also, before you go with the live demonstration, so SolarWinds has actually recently acquired a product called Vivid Cortex, which is for a cloud database monitoring platform. So that's also something very interesting that has happened recently. Mark?
Yeah. So I released yesterday that information. So yes, well done, hot off the press. So a cloud database monitoring technology provider.
Okay, so I think you can crack on with the demo.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just going to highlight the first thing. So we are speaking to more and more customers as they move into the kind of hybrid realm where they're utilizing Azure, AWS for hosting the Orion platform. There are various things. We've actually done a previous webinar content on this topic, but in essence, if you are moving to Azure, AWS, if the reasons for that are the fact that you've got more infrastructure in the cloud than you have on-prem, then these are drivers to take advantage. Also in terms of just the fact that you want to put your applications and infrastructure monitoring in the cloud, because that's how that fits in with your remit in terms of that technology. So Azure, we have now the ability to deploy a SolarWinds platform from the marketplace. So rather than standing up a virtual machine, downloading the installer file, executing it, you can literally come to this GUI and say, okay, I want to deploy my network performance monitor. And I can see what it's about, I can create it, and literally it will then take you through that wizard where you can put your name, obviously what resource group, what location you want to deploy it from, all these kind of things. So step-by-step process to deploy an Orion platform. Now, this is really useful for things like trialing, perhaps. This is really useful for kind of utilizing the deployment method for somebody that doesn't want to get their hands dirty, and I say hands dirty, clicking execute on an installer and running through the step-by-step wizard isn't exactly going to make you mucky, but this is certainly an option for you to look at deploying it in the cloud. If you need to do something a little bit more than just deploying NPM, for example, if you want to do multi-modules, then you'll be best to revert to the previous installation routine. But as I say, it's an option that has become available in this release. So I'm going to go into my platform here. So let's just make sure I have a login and I haven't timed out. Excellent. So first things you'll see is the mapping function. So let's go to our Orion Maps link. You can see in terms of this, I'm going to be covering some of the things that came along in a previous version, but certainly this is kind of all part and parcel of that additional capabilities of utilizing this kind of version 2 mapping capability to provide your visual presentations. I'm a big believer in making sure your audience is aligned to the way that they need to consume data. Orion is collecting huge amounts of data, and presenting that in an efficient, informative manner is critical, and doing visualization presentations can very much be a conduit to making that efficiency capability. So what we can see here, I can drag and drop. Yep, so we've been able to do that since the previous release. What we can also now do in this entity library, which is very much the kind of heart of the improvements here, is kind of bulk select. So say, for example, I want to put these two devices. I've just clicked control button on my keyboard. I've multi-selected. I could do shift and select, sorry, and I can drag those objects on. And because I am monitoring the topology data as well from these devices, it's automatically connected, these objects. So this switch has these two devices physically connected to it. From that point of view, this just really speeds up that whole process. I can move these objects around. I've got full control over them. I want to give it a name here, so I'm going to do new feature. I've got my dark theme. So for those of you like myself that have been banging the dark theme drum for many a good time now, this is our first taster for getting visibility of that. No pun intended in terms of dark theme. We can change the icons on the maps, and we've got some additional features over here with regards snap to grid and such like in terms of when we lay things out. So just a little bit of improvements there make big benefits in terms of that efficiencies of creating this. But one of the big issues that customers have, and certainly they still had this in the Network Atlas, and this is why this is so much better, is this ability to search through hundreds, if not thousands of objects to monitor. So you can see here we've got far more object types available to include in the maps. So this shouldn't just be about devices. This shouldn't be just about the kind of network performance. Creating your application stack visibility. So if you've got your Exchange environment, if you've got SharePoint, if you've got your CRM platform, all these kind of service technologies you've got within your infrastructure, create those service groups, create a visual plan, identify how this comes together. So your users, when they see that, they can see the fact that here's a server and here's an application sitting on it. Here are the performance metrics of that. That is certainly going to be something that's going to bring in that level of visibility. And you can see, for example, here we've got this new technology with the API polar that we can add onto a map as well. We shall see that in due course. Because Heath, I've just seen you ask a question. Absolutely,
yes, I was about
yeah,
I was about
we
to say,
are
Mark,
going to be
because you did
covering
that
that.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I have eyes in the side of my head. So what I'm going to do is just, for example, here, add an application. So here I've got an application that I can see is running on this server. So at the moment, I've got these two applications that are running off of a single server entity. Well, that's fine. What I would like to do is utilize the ability to, actually I want to just change that to Node again. These filters. So at the moment, I could do a search. Yeah, I could go and find my server and drag it onto the chart. I could benefit, however, from this filter. So when I click on the filters, I've got some preset entities. So here, if I knew, for example, that this was a Windows server, which I do, I could come in and I could choose Windows. But actually, do I know which flavor of Windows it is? Okay, well, I could go and change it to vendor if I like. But the other thing that I could do is I can click on this pencil icon. And that now gives me access to a whole bunch of other filter mechanisms. And in this, as you will hear me talk to many of my customers about the importance of custom properties and the importance of getting those in place, getting good data quality, because they help so much. So I want roll, not rolls. I'm thinking of lunch already. So I've got a custom property that I want to utilize here because I would like maybe to put all of my devices that fit into a certain role. And so here you can see I want to put my virtual host on this. Maybe I want my servers as well. And so now only those type of entities are going to be displayed. So I'm going to put my ESX host on here, and I'm also going to put my guest server on here, and you'll see as I've done each of those, it now has that understanding about where these exist. They have connections to each other. These two applications are installed on it and run from this server, and this server is itself being hosted by that ESX platform. That kind of core functionality is relevant throughout the whole of the application. Also, what we have up here is the ability to put imagery on here. So maybe I want to link all of this to a cloud. So up here, maybe I've got this device, so I'm control selecting. That brings up my new icon here, and now I can manually configure the connectivity between these objects. So just from a time factor, actually, let me go ahead and do it. So on this device, I'm going to choose my interface. I'm actually also going to choose that interface as well. Okay, and now you will see that I have a connection that runs between those two objects. So that library, I just downloaded as part of my icon set, kind of cloud entity image that I want to use. Maybe I want to put all of this infrastructure in a geographic layout. Clearly, in terms of the application, that's not relevant, but maybe this infrastructure is, maybe this is my WAN router connectivity between my sites, and I can now save this map and use that within the front end screen. Okay, so let's go on and have a look at the device view. So I'm actually going to go and use the online demo. So this is publicly available. Everyone on the session, by all means, you can go and have a look and play around with these new features. Things that I'm demonstrating here exist in this demo. So what I just want to do here is just show you the new device view. So as I said, currently this is restricted to essentially the 29,000 series devices from Cisco, as well as some Junipers. So I'm going to the node details of one of these devices, and over on the left-hand side, you will see I have a new icon, device view. So already done. Yeah, as soon as you upgrade, it's going to identify that if you've got these devices, it will now automatically present this. There's no buttons that you need to press to enable this functionality. So this is a representation of a front panel of a 2960 48 port Cisco CAT switch. We've got our status. So clearly green, something is plugged into it. So if I click on that, it will bring in some information. So its MAC address, its configuration, its duplex setting, its performance, how much utilization have we got. We also have some other status here with regards to things like we are monitoring this in Orion, but currently we've placed that interface into an unmanaged status. So we're not necessarily, or not in that case, collecting information all the time. We've got a monitored interface in Orion, but it's currently in an operational state of down. Okay, that may or may not be something of importance, but certainly it's giving us that visual clue to that being the state. And then the last icon here that we've got is the fact that this is an interface that's is not being monitored by Orion, that exists on this device, and therefore we have no visibility about its status, its utilization, its traffic levels, errors, discards, all of those kind of things. So it's a nice way of visually representing this. And one of the nice things actually I like here is this ability to change this to get an indication of how much traffic is going through each of these interfaces. Just this alone means that if we've got port 51 as our uplink, we can kind of see the makeup of this and see, well, actually collectively these 100 meg interfaces are suddenly going onto a gig interface, or larger obviously these days. How is that working? How much traffic is likely to be going across that switch? Okay, so now we're going to move on to the functionality with the SAM API. So I'm going to start off on our platform. I'm actually going to go through the process of putting a custom polder in place. So I'm going to go to my homepage. Yep, I do want to leave. I'm not going to save that. And what I'm going to do here is just go to one of our devices. So here I have an environmental sensor. And what we did here is just created a quick JSON interface so we can show this off. And I've got this in place already. I'm actually going to just delete this. I'm going to redo it. And you'll see how interactive and easy this is. So as I said in the slide deck, we were in a position of having to do this via scripted methods previously. So here with the API, I can create, I can put my URL. Now this is a GET request. We also support a post, and if we have post, then it brings the body in play. So anybody that has done API integration work, this will make absolute sense to you. We just have some configuration settings up here, so I'm just going to give it a name. We currently only support basic authentication or no, so bear that in mind at the moment. That will improve in the next release, I understand. And then we have things like the headers. So I could in here put the content type, I could put my value in here, I could put my authentication key if you're doing that. So all of that is supported. But the good thing about this is when you click send request, it will go off to the URL and it will bring back and return the result. And essentially, this is just a very quick, we're provided back in the response a date and a value, in this case, a temperature in Celsius. If we have multiple boxes, then they will just get listed and we will have a monitor this value option against each of the numeric entities. And it is literally a case of filling this in. I want to put a threshold on here. If it goes above 25 degrees, warning, above 30, it's critical. Click save. And that's essentially it. I've now created my polar here. That is now in place. It will now return me to this page. And what we can do from this is then kind of create a view for this. Now, I might want to very quickly just put one of the new widgets here. So if I put API, do a search, I've got a dedicated widget for this. So immediately I can look at the status. And if I click on this, this is going to take me through to PerfStack. So this PerfStack, we just need to actually leave it a few moments just to bring back the first metrics. But if we see here that we've got our entry, I can see the status. I also want to get in here the metrics, so I'm just going to add my temperature. So very quickly able to be done. So I'm just going to put that across. And what we will then end up doing, thank you, come on now. So I think this is purely related to the fact that I have just got a first poll to do. So let me go and bring that back. So we'll do this again. I say what we just need to make sure is that we've got data coming in. So I'm just going to click on poll now. And just force Orion just to go and collect that data. Typically, it's much quicker. Obviously, the demo gods are smiling on me. So now I think I saw the start of, okay. So here's my temperature. You can see we have some other ones in here. Okay. Yeah, the demo gods are really smiling on me. Excellent. So what I wanted to do in here is just bring in the charts. I'll come back to this at the end and I'll show you how easy that is. So just need to get that data coming in first of all. Okay, so we'll move on to the SCM functionality. So I'm going to go to the online demo site. And what we'll see here under SCM is our functionality. So we've got the summary page a lot of this you're seeing on the screen is consistent with what's been there for a while. The inclusion now, as I say, is this support for Linux. So you will see that we've got a number of changes that are taking place. So this list here on the right-hand widget is giving us in time order all of the changes that have taken place. So I can see immediately that on this machine that we have a change in terms of the package list. So from there, I can now identify on this device all of the changes across the monitored profiles that I've got in place. I have Docker, essentials, security permissions, there is software, there is also hardware profiles out of the box as well. You can also create your own custom ones from scratch, but these profiles are clearly quick because you can apply them very straightforward. In fact, if I go across to our platform here, we can see that I've got my profile here. And so these are the out of the box functions. So monitoring your kind of service initialization function. You can see that we can view the details of that. I'm actually going to go across to 3 here and just view this one because it's a little bit more interesting. You can see that not only do we support kind of file monitoring, this is the file that I want to do a monitor for, this is its path, and therefore any changes to that file will be identified. We can also support scripts. So you write a script, the results of that script are then obviously returned, and if there are any changes to the results of that script, what is printed back from that device, that is used for the difference analysis. So if I just go back here and show you this example here, you will see that there has been a change on the package deployment. So clearly PowerShell that was previously there is now no longer there. That's been removed. This is that new context. So rather than showing the whole of the configuration, this is just showing the lines surrounded by the 5 adjacent to it, but you've got the link up here to the full configuration. Okay, so I just want to go back here and just see if we've got this data before I move on to questions. Or as I say, are the demo gods going to frustrate me today? You know what it's like. Do all your testing, get everything set up, all works fine. Yeah, no, it's not working fine now. Okay, so we'll leave that. Okay, so from my point of view, that's kind of things that I wanted to just show here. I'm just going to go across because
I think, Mark, before we go with the Q&A, there are some questions that's been raised.
Yeah.
But I think, do we have a poll question for?
We do indeed, yes.
So just before we ended it up, this is a second poll question about which, based on what you've seen today, what is actually a feature or a functionality that you're most excited about. It would be interesting to see that. So I hope you could put in your poll in there, your response.
It'd be interesting to see how aligned this is. Yeah, okay. What a surprise. Web page performance, yes. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting with the Meraki. That's interesting from my viewpoint. It kind of reinforces what we're seeing with customers.
Yep.
But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that 39% of you have suggested that the web page performance is the big one. Say that on its own is absolutely a reason. Hopefully, when you saw me navigating through the screens, you saw the improved speed of those page load times.
Right. So I think there are a couple of questions, Mark, that has been raised.
Okay.
The first one would be, is there any support for Aruba Wi-Fi?
Aruba, yeah, absolutely. So that has actually been in place for a while. So again, I'm going to use the online demo. So who put that in there? Was that
Steve?
Steve.
Yeah.
So Steve, go to the online demo under wireless. You can see that we have support for Aruba. So here, if we
vendor
here, okay, so they did have Aruba in the demo platform. They don't anymore, but yes, Aruba is a supported Wi-Fi technology. If you have any issues with that, reach out to us. I'll be more than happy to provide direct assistance to get that working for you. But essentially what that allows you to do is see all of your wireless access points, and you can see the clients and the performance metrics related to the clients connected to there. And there's a whole kind of search functionality and also mapping functionality around this as well. If I just tempt you with that while you ask the next question, Mon.
Yeah, there's a question about having the availability of a new SolarWinds offline installer. This was a question from Gray.
Okay, so is there going to be a new SolarWinds offline installer? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that, Gray. I'll answer it as best I can, so follow up at the question if I don't get that right. So the installation routine, you log on to the customer portal. There are two download types. There's an online installer, which is a small download, 80 meg. You run that on the Orion or the server you want to install Orion on or upgrade, and it will then download all of the components from that machine. So the Orion server needs to have internet access for that function to work. The offline installer is not that, it's everything. So it's a 3.8 gig download. You locate that on your main server, and then you can go ahead and upgrade. But if I just show you the nice thing in the latest releases, so you will see here we have under settings, my Orion deployment, updates and evaluations tab. And this will then tell you what you have available. So here you can see that we've got nothing outstanding, but if you did, you'd get this highlighted that there is an available upgrade, and you would literally just start going through this wizard. So all of your upgrade function can be performed via this web interface now, which is really, really neat. You've also got, as well in this 2019.4, the ability to install evaluations. So if you do not have, say, for example, one of the modules, you'll be able to select it from this bottom list and add that to your installation to play with, and then it will give you the ability to remove it cleanly thereafter. I hope, Gray, that answered your question there.
And of course, the last question was actually from Heath earlier, asking about the API pollers, which you've actually shown, Mark. But Heath, if you do have any follow-up questions following what you've seen today, please feel free to reach out to us or your account manager, and we'll if it's needed, we'll put a separate discussion on that particular topic. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think in the interest of time, I think we've reached the end. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us your insights and knowledge with regard to these new features that was released by SolarWinds. And I do hope that, something that you can pick up from this is think about, the SolarWinds platform and also these new features that could potentially benefit you. So if you have any follow-up questions following this demo, please feel free to reach out to your account manager or through us. You have direct contacts with me and also with Mark. And last thing before I end is there is a survey at the end of the presentation for this webinar. So I do hope that you can find time to fill it out. There was last one question, Mark. A new feature. Can you have a new feature available document? So
okay. So let me just. So we've got the data coming in. So I've just very quickly, while Mon's just doing the closing, just been in here. So now you can see, and we've got our lovely chart coming in. Okay. So to answer the question, under Thwack, you will see under each of the product areas. So I'm going to choose NPM in this case. You have the links to say that 2019.4 for this product is now generally available. Mm-hmm. So this is a blog post from the product managers to say what the new features are, a little bit of background on all of this. But clearly, you can also just look at the release notes. So you can just Google this and you will see, again, all of the new features listed for your products there.
Right. Okay, thank
Okay.
you so much. So thank you so much, Mark, for sharing that additional information. But really, thank you for joining us today, guys. And we look forward to you joining us again in our future webinars. So again, this is Monjule. Thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.